The language that Blinken is using is really just a reality of where we are. This, he says, could metastasize into something much bigger. They really are losing on multiple fronts now. Public opinion, credibility in terms of negotiator, and they have very little lean over Netanyahu, is how it would appear.
That is certainly the case. And the fact that he's saying this in the Middle East on this grand tour, his fourth circuit of the Middle East, in a place where people will turn around and say, yeah, tell us something we don't know. If anybody knows the risks of this metastasization of the crisis, it is the people who live in the middle of it. So he's not telling people there anything they don't know. I'm hoping that in private conversations he's going farther than that, because they're going to turn around and say, yeah, what are you going to do about it? What are you doing about it? You're the people. The United States is the country with the greatest leverage over Israel. What are you doing with that leverage? And as yet, the Biden administration has had no answers to that question. So I don't think the Secretary of State going and saying, "Oh, the waters are rising and we're getting deeper and deeper into this," is really going to cut the mustard with anybody. Sorry for mangling my metaphors there.
No problem at all, Bobby. Look, in terms of what a wider conflict would look like, I mean, at first blush, you say, okay, it's Israel, the West, versus Gaza, versus Hamas, versus Iran. But what does the emergence of the Islamic State taking responsibility for the Iran mean for what a conflict would actually look like and the type of players involved in it?
So the arrival of the Islamic State on the stage at this moment sort of greatly complicates things for everybody. For Iran, it takes attention away from Israel, and now they have to deal with this huge new crisis. The Islamic State has not been able to mount an attack like this so deep into Iran ever. And nearly 100 people died. It exposes incompetence in the Iranian security establishment, and the Iranian state is nothing if it's not a security establishment. So it is a domestic crisis that takes attention away from its confrontation with Israel. Now, that confrontation with Israel is not direct, it is indirect. Iran uses proxies. So there's Hamas in Palestine, there's Hezbollah in Lebanon, and most recently, the Houthis in Yemen, who are gumming up the Red Sea. So Iran is now having to deal with multiple crises across the board. That's not really going to change the situation in the Red Sea or in Gaza. So for the rest of the world, those problems don't go away.
Given the internal crisis of security that Iran is now facing with the ISIS attack, ISIS claiming responsibility for the attack, killing 100 people, what does that do to the wider geopolitical escalation? In other words, our own backyard is looking pretty dangerous at the moment. Mm-hmm. If we go for full escalation with the Houthis or indeed Hezbollah, do you think the things domestically can temper how far Iran will push it with the proxies, or is that just wishful thinking?
I'm afraid that that's not how Iran operates. The whole point of using proxies is that it takes pressure away from Tehran itself. The proxies have a certain amount of agency and independence.
They add the pressure to the U.S.
They add pressure to Israel, to the U.S. Once they've been launched, they've been launched. Iran's direct day-to-day role in controlling how much the proxies do is limited. But at the same time, now Iran has to deal with the possibility of a new front. It looks like this ISIS strike came out of Afghanistan. That puts Iran in confrontation with the Taliban. Mm-hmm. The last time that happened was in 1998, and the two countries almost went to war. Now you have a new crisis. The Taliban has a complicated relationship, shall we say, with ISIS. On the one hand, they have certain ideologies in common, but they also have sort of rivalries over control of parts of Afghanistan. So this is a time when, to go back to where we started, Secretary Blinken will be hearing from all his Middle Eastern interlocutors saying, look, this thing has become insanely more complicated. The easiest way to simplify this is to start with a ceasefire in Israel. You're the people, the United States, you're the people who can make that happen. What are you doing about it? And that's going to be the number one I suspect, demand or request from every interaction that he has on this trip.